Welcome to Spain. It's February, we've left a shivering Britain behind us and come 1,000 miles south. We don't go to all this effort for the good of our health, you won't be surprised to hear. We've come all this way for the 600cc Super Sports Group Test, one of the most important tests we'll do all year. This bike's a big part of the reason why we're down here. It's the Honda CBR 600RR and it's totally new for 2007. Honda's taken the old bike and basically flung it in the skip, replaced every single part, and they've come out with the lightest, sharpest, most powerful CBR 600 ever. It's going to be a real challenger for this class. The other exciting new bike for this year is the Kawasaki ZX6R. Again, like the Honda, Kawasaki's basically taken the old bike and started afresh. The old 636cc engine's been replaced by a 599cc engine, totally new from the ground up. Kawasaki's tweaked the chassis to optimise it for track use, and the firm reckons this will be the best ZX6 for track use ever. It's going to be hard to compete with the big engine it had last year, but everything else just looks amazing in this bike and it's going to be a strong contender. Last year's winner was a Triumph 675 Daytona. This bike just amazed us with the engine and the performance and the character and the style. It just has such an overall package that was just impossible for the Japanese to beat. It's unchanged for this year, but it was such a strong contender last year and won by a clear margin. I'm not sure if anything's going to beat it this year. Last year, Yamaha's R6 grabbed the headlines with its incredible mix of super high technology, high revving engine and razor sharp chassis. Didn't do so well in our test right now, for the Focus just took away from its capability on the road, but it's still an incredible piece of machinery and it's going to be strong here. In many ways it's been the unsung hero of the 600 class. Suzuki's GSX-R 600 doesn't have lots of technology, it doesn't look like anything particularly special, it just looks like a solid GSX-R middleweight contender. It was just perfectly fine with me. It's one of the best bikes to ride on track, it's a good road package, and it could be a surprise on this test. One to watch. Out of all the manufacturers, Honda's probably got the most heritage in this class. That CBR 600 has been the benchmark for the 600 class for years and years, and when they brought out the CBR 600RR in '93, they sort of just moved everything on a bit. They gave the bike a lot stronger track focus, they made it sharper, but they didn't lose any of the usability the old CBR had. And this latest CBR does that more than ever.
As soon as you get on the CBR 600, it feels like that all the departments that have designed it has got together at the end of the project after being told that make everything 10% better, and it does seem like they've done it really.
And they've managed to make it so much lighter as well. I mean, they've lost a stack of dry weight off the bike. It's the lightest in the class by a fair margin now, both in terms of claimed figures and in actual weighed wet figures trackside. It's always been an easy bike to ride, and this latest one's no exception. The engine's really strong through the mid-range for a 599cc 4, and yet it's got that screaming top end as well.
I was hoping that Honda would do a bit more for the styling this year. I mean, you park it near an older model CBR, and to be honest, it doesn't look a stack different really, which I don't know, I'm sort of a little bit disappointed. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it looks bad at all. It looks, it is a very well styled bike, it looks lovely, but as a brand new bike, which it is, somebody's been a little bit lazy, I'd say. If everything else is 10% better, then maybe the styling's sort of 2% better. It's got some poise, it feels really well balanced. From front to rear, there's you get on the brakes and then get on the throttle, and there's no ridiculous weight shifts anywhere. The suspension is typically, as Honda has been over the last few years, it's plush but somehow firm at the same time. It is a fantastic bike. It just feels familiar. It's like riding the old CBR 600, except in a 10% better light.
I suppose you look at this bike and you think, wow, Kawasaki's pulled out all the stops here. You know, it's essentially a brand new machine from the ground up. New engine, new chassis, new styling, new everything. And it looks incredible, I think. I know some of the other guys, Dave in particular, aren't too pleased with the looks, but I just think it looks smashing, it looks ninja, it looks manga, it looks really radical and different.
I've got to say, I think it being bright green probably doesn't, it accentuates the fact that it is roundy and a bit tubby looking, as we said already. But yeah, it's not for me. Like standing next to the R6, and the R6 looks sharp, and that looks like they just couldn't really be bothered designing it, and got some sort of balloons out and twist them about. Thought all that to do with paint them green and make a bike out of that.
What it's also lost is the big capacity that the old bike had. The old bike was 636cc, and this new one is a 599, so that saves Kawasaki building a separate bike for racing, but also means they're missing out on the advantage they had with that little cheat on the older bike. I mean, the old bike just had so much mid-range. You could just twist the throttle open, leave it in a high gear, and just accelerate away in traffic or on a dual carriageway. This bike, you have to work a lot harder at it. And it's got a very tall first gear, and so pulling away from the lights, and you use lots of clutch and lots of revs again, and it's not as satisfying as the older bike with the bigger engine, I don't think.
It feels kind of just a little bit too hard work, really, especially on the road. As Al said, you have to rev the guts out of it to get it off the line, really. While doing the speed testing, it kind of felt almost like it was going to stall. It couldn't. You had to be really conscious to get the throttle and the clutch, get the motor revving basically before you let the clutch out at all. Otherwise, it just sort of went a bit boggy.
Also, it's a tiny bit big, which it is actually when you get on it. It feels bigger than the others, especially the Honda and the Yamaha. And that's good in some ways. If you're going for a longer run, you might feel a bit more comfortable on the ZX6.
On the track, the suspension's fine. It's really good actually on track. It's not got the plushness of the Suzuki suspension, but it's good. It's well supported and certainly adequate. You can go fast on it without fear of running over bumps and losing the front, or coming out of corners and hitting a bump and it sliding sideways because it reacts so hard or anything. So. It is a good bike, and it seems like the faster you go on it, the more it kind of makes sense, really.
I mean, we know the 675 Daytona's a good bike, just partly because it won the test last year. In 2006, for me, it was the best 600 by a fair mile. The simple trick of making a 675 triple instead of a 599cc 4 means that Triumph's got an engine with a lot more character about it, a lot more grunt, a lot more drive, a lot more mid-range and bottom end. and that just makes it a rocket ship on the road. You know, you come out a corner, you open the throttle and it goes, whereas on some of the other bikes you're left waiting for the engine revs to catch up with the throttle opening you've dialed in.
You know, you got a choice of maybe 3 gears coming out of the corner on Triumph, whereas basically most of the other ones, you've got to be in the right gear to have a decent amount of fun on it. Otherwise, you're waiting for the motor to get in the designer's sweet spot, really. If you're going to pick a bike for going down roads that you didn't really know that were quite low speed and bits and pieces, you know, and it was a 600 or nothing, then the 675 is the bike, really.
Triumph's managed to put together a really sharp handling chassis as well. You know, there's fantastic suspension, a really good cast aluminium frame. They've kept the whole bike very light, which is a useful trick if you can do it, and light bikes mean better bikes pretty much. And that holds true for the Triumph as well.
Again, one of 2 bikes on test without a slipper clutch, but it's not really a problem on track, although it could, to be fair, it could do one with the high seat height and the engine. I think the centre of gravity is quite high, really, with the whole chassis. In fact, it does sort of get a bit backed into the corners once you start getting a tread on.
And it looks good too. I mean, it looks different from the others. It looks special. It's got quite high-class components, you know, with the Nissan brake calipers, the suspension units.
The styling, I think for me the verdict's still a bit out, really. It's already, for me, starting to look a little bit dated. Again, I'm going to use the R6 as a benchmark. Standing next to the R6, it's kind of looking a little bit like an old bike to me now.
On the downside, the seat's too high for me. I mean, I'm 5'8", and you just stretch to reach the ground, and that can put you off at first, although once you're moving you don't notice it really.
You do get used to it quickly, and it doesn't seem to throw an undue amount of weight onto the bars either, really. But that's not to say it's a big problem, and you know, coming out of corners with the 3-cylinder engine screaming away and making an awesome noise, you can forgive it for a lot of things, to be honest.
I wouldn't be disappointed if I had this Triumph 675 as a bike to ride day to day.
It is a fantastic bike.
The normally reliable Triumph 675 Daytona has let us down a wee bit. Problem with the fuel pump relay, which took us some time to find. So we bypassed the fuel pump relay, put a feed straight from the battery to the fuel pump. It's working now, so we just need to put a switch on it. And we've got a light switch from the wall. And some cable for the speakers in the van. But it goes, that's the main thing.
You'll be able to wire up your lights at home now.
I suppose it comes as no surprise when you look at the R6 to realise that it's not the best on the road. I mean, it's just such a focused looking machine that immediately as soon as you clap eyes on it, it's very sharp, it's radical, it's short, compact, everything about it screams track, you know, full bore, crazy throttle use everywhere. And when you pull away to ride on the road, that comes true pretty much immediately.
I was a little bit disappointed with the R6 really. It looks so sharp and focused, and as Alan said, it looks like it should win the test really.
It's packed with lots of high technology. It's got dual speed compression, damper adjustment on the suspension. It's got a fly-by-wire throttle. It's got advanced fuel injection, and all that stuff is great. But it just makes the bike feel that much more focused and radical and sharp-edged, and less easy to get on with on the road.
The slipper clutch isn't fantastic on the track, so it missed out a little bit there, where I was hoping it was really, really going to shine.
Suspension's hard, so whenever you hit a bump, you get jolted at the seat, and you just feel uncomfortable. And the engine is just really revvy. It makes the most of its power up at the top end, and the consequence of that is that lower down in the rev range, you just find it wanting in terms of instant drive. If you're looking for an overtake on a dual carriageway, or even just going for a gap in traffic in town, you feel you have to drop down a gear every time and just give it loads and loads of revs and loads of throttle to get anywhere, which is fine if you're in the mood for it, but it just gets wearing after a while, and you just think, I'm looking for an easier time maybe, and I might find it with some of the other bikes.
But in its defence, again, it does look so sharp and new. It is, styling-wise, it's a bike that all the other bikes seem to be judged by on test, and none of them look as new. It's quite a daring design, I'd say, and looks really fresh.
In a lot of ways, it's kind of the forgotten GSXR, the 600, because it's 750 and 1000cc big brothers grab all the headlines with their amazing power. But it just gets on with things. It's a pretty standard bike, and there's nothing fantastically radical about its technology. It's got an inline 4-cylinder engine like them all. It's 16 valves. Apart from that, it's just pretty basic, and it's just good, solid Suzuki engineering. The suspension, the frame, the engine design, it's all tried and tested stuff.
It just does everything well. It doesn't particularly excel in anything, but it does everything well. The suspension's plush, yet it's firm. You can ride it on a track on standard settings with not really any bother unless you start, really, really getting a move on and being silly.
If you had been really critical, you could say the styling's looking a bit dated now. The graphics are a bit shell suit. Some people like that. The blue and white traditional Suzuki colouring looks okay.
Well, I think it still looks reasonably fresh. I think out of all the bikes, if prettiness was, got it points, I think it'd do pretty well, really. I think it's well proportioned and the lines flow through it nicely and all that sort of thing.
It's a powerful bike, it's fast, it's as fast as any of the bikes here in the Trinec.
Yeah, the motor works fine. You do need to get it revving quite hard for, to get the best out of it. But it's, bar the Triumph, it's the same in all the 600s. So, yeah, I like it. The riding position's the most comfy of all of them for me, certainly. It offers the best wind protection.
Welcome back to Blighty. We've finished the main part of the test in Spain with the track and the road riding over there, but we thought we'd add in a bit of riding on the roads back home just to see how these bikes perform there. I know you think this is a dream job, and you're right, it is very good, but there are some really hard bits as well. And this is one of the hardest, it's actually arranging these bikes in order of preference from 1 to 5, because there are no bad bikes here. I mean, each one of these bikes is great in its own way, and with its own particular character.
Definitely. Each different people will find different things good about them, but all of them are great. Yeah.
So that said, we still have to have an order, and here it is. In 5th place is Yamaha R6. Fourth is the Kawasaki ZX6R. Third, the Suzuki GSX-R 600. In 2nd place is last year's winner, Triumph 675 Daytona. But the winner, the one that's just blown everyone's head off and just nailed it heart on in every possible area, is the Honda. It's a CBR 600RR, and it's a 2007 Superbike 600 Super Sports Bike of the Year. Yay!